Real Estate Hustlers podcast. I'm your host, Josh Appleman. Today we are joined with JD Allen. He's a formal software engineering leader turned real estate investor with 9+ years acquiring and renovating multifamily and mobile home assets, founder of the Bounce Method. JD, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Hey Josh, yeah, I appreciate you having me. So I've been investing in small apartment complexes for, like I said, about 9 or 10 years. And recently I did start up the Bounce Method, and it's we teach students how to actually do the same kind of thing, buy in, hold, and operate, and all those kinds of things. Was a Marine for about 10 years, and a leader of engineering for about 25 years now, which seems to make me pretty old. So,
Got
but
it.
yeah.
Well, let's go back to the very beginning. Tell us how you got into real estate, what made you want to get into real estate, and then your first deal.
Yeah, so I started off I was doing stock market, and I thought I was doing pretty good, but I kept losing my butt. So I was like, I got to do something different, right? And at the time, my goal was just to acquire a couple of houses, and I was like, I add a few $100s here and there, and it felt like every time I added a little bit of money, I was losing money. I was doing the exact same thing. And then um, one of the property managers that I had working with the duplex came out, and he had a mobile home park and asked me if I'd be interested. I said, yeah, let's make it happen. So I jumped in there and bought it with seller financing, and the rest kind of just fell into place after that. I had to get my feet wet. I didn't know what I was doing, but kind of figured it out over time.
Yeah, it's the biggest piece is getting in there and actually doing it and taking action. What made you want to get out of software engineering, though? It sounds like a steady career, and just tell us about that transition.
So I actually love software engineering and I continued doing it for quite a while, even after, getting into multifamily. But the thing is, it's like after a while, even though AI is here now, right? You still feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. It's a daily grind. The corporate lifestyle just doesn't always fit. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah, you mentioned AIs here, and it absolutely is. I'm an engineer now, thanks to
Okay.
Cloud Cowork.
Yeah, yeah.
put in a put in a prompt and let it connect all the APIs and just do the things. It's an amazing tool, but it can definitely and that's part of, like, I don't know where SaaS is even going. What value is software when you can put in a prompt and make it your own with your own data? Um, things are certainly changing. What are your
I mean,
thoughts?
I think it's amazing. It is amazing. You're right. When I started engineering, it really was 30 years ago. It was crazy because you literally had to type every command, right? And then you got to the next generation to come out. And so it's like Visual Basic and things like that. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And now, it's the thing that I'm seeing. It's like you really have to be more of like artistic in a way, creative, very, very creative. And so you can tell that tool what you want to build, right? And then you still have to figure out the errors, but it rolls into multifamily. I 100% believe that. We see it all the time. So
Yeah, no, I've created an asset management dashboard that just gives me insights that really it would have been probably $200,000 or $300,000 to get your CFO involved, your developers, and all the things to make it the way it is. It's incredible. Um, Tell us. So going back to the beginning, you got in. You got your first real estate, which is mobile home park, correct?
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Tell us how that progressed, and then how that led to your journey, and where you are where you're now with your real estate.
Yeah, so the mobile home park was really kind of the big move. It's like I I didn't really know a lot, but I had a lot of park owned homes, and I'm not, not I know these are technical terms to some people, but like what I had to do was learn the ins and outs of how to actually make money in a mobile home park. Because if you're owning it, you're losing money on the asset, right? And so it was a matter of learning that I needed to really pass those off to the tenant, make them tenant owned homes. And once I'd done that, started cash flowing really well, and was able to go and actually bought the park next to it and done a wholesale deal with that. So the way that I structured the deal was I took this 50 units and I brought in another 50 units in a seller financing contract with an assign. And when I sold it to the next investor, I made it a 100 unit package, right? So it ended up being a really nice deal on the sales, basically wholesaling this piece, right? And from that point, I took that money and kind of split it up and jumped into, at the time it was a 7 unit and an 11 unit and then a 17 unit. So really started, getting into buying multiple pieces. And then I've just kind of continued that process since then.
If you own the mobile home park or mobile homes, why do you lose money versus the tenant owning them?
Yeah, so mobile homes themselves have a lot of, a lot of problems, a lot of expenses, and so the biggest thing when you're owning a mobile home park is you really want to be focusing on owning lots more so than actually owning the mobile homes. And so once I learned that, it was okay. What's the quickest way to get to this point? And what I actually done, and I've heard different scenarios here, but what I actually done was after I renovated, I gave them to the tenants. I didn't go out and say, pay me 5 grand or whatever, right? I just said, here you go. You can take this if you want it. And a lot of them took me up on that. And then there were a few that didn't really want to, but over time it just kind of transitioned where it all worked out.
Were you doing seller finance for them to own them, or just gifting
Mm-mm.
them?
I was gifting them. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Because to me it was like, when you're talking, I wasn't going to really get more than like $2,000 or $3,000 anyway. I mean, we're not talking about, brand new 2026 mobile homes. I mean, some of these were 1960s, 1970s. And so, I got a handyman to kind of come out, and we completely, I mean, we changed this place a lot, but we ripped out the flooring, put in new flooring, had to fix the roofs and some decks and things like that. And when we gifted it, you could see how, instead of me having to worry about that trailer every single week or two with an issue, now they were responsible for handling those issues. And so to me, it was like, okay, I'm paying more up front, but in the long run, I'm not going to be dealing with those issues anymore. You get rid of those toilets and all the things that people worry about.
You just have your passive lot rent payments coming in,
Yeah.
and then very cool. What did you exit it? Did you have a good exit? What happened with the business plan?
Yeah, it's I don't want to say specific numbers, but I literally 10 by my investment. Like, I no joke 10 by the investment. And it was because, it was a falling apart mobile home park at the time. And, you know, once I learned how to piece it all together, and there was a Frank, I can't remember his last name, but I watched a lot of stuff on Bigger Pockets, some people kind of explaining how to deal with those, right? And it was once I learned how to do that and what it was actually going to take in order to increase the value, that's what I focused on from day
Yeah,
one. It was like, get it to that point.
yeah, making sure your
Yeah,
financials are all right GL codes, properly formatted, and all the
yeah,
things.
yeah.
You transitioned into apartments, so tell us about how that progressed.
Yeah, to start with, it was kind of the same transition. I didn't know anything about apartments, and it was, what do I got to do to make these better? And that, the 7 unit was really kind of a bad investment at the time. I mean, it worked out because it was just timing worked out well, but like, it was in a bad neighborhood. I really bought it because it was cheap, and I thought, this is a good deal, but um, ended up making a little bit of a profit on it, not a lot, but it was kind of the second deal after I learned, don't do this and that. It was the second deal was like, okay, I already know how to not, how to avoid these mistakes, and that one actually turned into a pretty good deal. One of the deals that I still own. Yeah,
Nice. So it
yeah,
a little intimidating going in, negative cash flow, and then you turned it around and made it into something that is durable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about your journey from then and where you're at now.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't really want to make it an advertisement, but I do what I've done now is I kind of teach that method, but I still continue to buy and sell. And my thing is really, I know a lot of people buy and like to hold forever, right? And my thing is, if I'm buying an older asset, I look at, I buy that property, I improve the value, And then if I like the asset, I'll keep it. If I don't like the asset, then I'm going to exit, but the, the biggest mistake, like, like I was saying earlier that I was making in the beginning was I didn't understand where I wanted to exit when I got to these apartments. And so I had to really focus on learning how to make sure I bought it correctly and that I was able to sell versus buying on a pro forma number, something like that, and selling. It was because in the beginning it was like, oh yeah, this broker's telling me it's worth this amount, and I that's great. I can buy it for this, and I'll be good. But that was not the case. But yeah,
No, never is.
yeah,
And typically, whatever the price is that they go to market is not it shouldn't. Real estate's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it, and
right,
that's really what it comes down to. But uh, I haven't sold anything yet, but I'm sure when and if I'm ready to sell something, it'll be for a stupid number, and then I'll have to be brought back down to planet Earth.
right,
But
right.
so tell us about the bounce method. Tell us about this. What is it about?
Yeah, so I look at, like the penny theory. Mine is more so if I buy the asset, I'm willing to jump in on really hard deals. Thinking back to the mobile home park, right? So it's not for everyone. But when I buy, I'm trying to find a value add, and then I try to increase the value. I then determine if I want to exit or my exit's either going to be a refinance or sell, right? And if I'm selling, then I'm going to 1031. And my next goal is to buy something bigger or worth more, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be more units, but something that's more valuable, right? With kind of the same situation, needs some work, that kind of thing. And that's really my transition. I also like to have money to live on, so I will allocate a certain amount of that money on a refinance or whatever that's going to be for my living. I make sure I have enough to put away for the year or whatever. But that's really it. That's the basic gist of it. Make sure we're operating it correctly after we buy. We buy on actuals, operating it correctly, normalize those numbers. Uh, Once we do that and we're cash flowing, we figure out our exit.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That's real estate in a nutshell, really.
it
It's a
is.
simple business. A lot of institutions make it complicated, and then it's a complicated model, and then they chase themselves. But real estate's it's easy. It can be easy. It
It
doesn't have to
can
be
be.
all these hurdles and waterfalls and pref equity and all this other fun stuff. Tell us about some learning lessons through your journey.
It's always about water, man. Like I swear, I've said this 100 times. Like I had a flood. I'll go back to a duplex. I had a flood at a duplex. It cost me 20 grand. I had a pipe um, that was causing it had stopped up at one of the apartment complexes, and it was about 125 to 150 grand that I should have caught. I didn't catch it. And then I had a septic issue that cost me about 50 grand. So
Yeah.
it's really a matter of me making sure that my due diligence is correct, right? Because I should have caught that 20 grand loss in the beginning, didn't catch it, just missed the cracks, or was too amped up by it was a seller financing deal. And I was like, you know what? I love this deal. I'm going to make it happen. It felt too easy. And the $125,000 one was just a killer. It was like I in that moment of time, it was like, man, I really messed up here, but it ended up working out. So
It's yeah, I sympathize with you on the septic. We had a pipe that had collapsed, and I mean it's right there. It's like 50 grand by the time you have it dug up, rerouted, all the new plumbing put in, and then make everything back to where it was originally. It's just feels like such a waste of money because it's nothing that's improving the property. It was already
right.
working and functioning there before. That's like just just a cash dump. But and then we've got another property we're looking at now. We're absolutely scoping the lines and doing all the things because we know. I mean, it's you pay your ignorance tax, and
You
that's what
do.
creates wisdom. So it's just a part of the journey, and hopefully you don't cross the same path twice when your learning lessons come in. But
You're
yeah,
right. You're right. I'll tell you a good story. So I was on vacation. I was actually at an all-inclusive resort, feeling all comfortable and everything, right? And I get a phone call from my property manager that a car had ran off the road and went through one of my units and was literally sitting in the unit.
Mm.
That's probably another one of those lessons. It's like I was happy that I had a lot of people around me to help because they called me to make sure I knew what was going on. They got the insurance ready. They got a general con. I mean, it was all so easy. But had I not been good to those people and had good relationships, it could have been a disaster, man.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that is truly being in the operations too, where you do have to hear about the toilets, termites, trash, and all the disasters. It's
Yeah.
that's real estate too. I mean, even we require all the tenants to have insurance as well, but you get into situations where the insurance doesn't cover what the tenants what has happened. So it's just and our most recent one was a scooter battery had blown up. I guess they left it on a charger. I guess you're not
Oh,
supposed to leave them on a charger, but it's an aftermarket battery. Left it on charger all night, and then that creates an incident. So it's just like all you don't know what you don't know, and the
yeah.
next thing is the next thing. It's just
You're right. You're right. It is. Yeah.
so. But all right. Well, tell us. So you got learning lessons. Tell us what you would advise other beginning real estate investors to do that might shorten their learning and maybe fast track their success.
I always hear you got to do single family or you got to do multifamily, you got to wholesale or I think you got to understand your tools and not be afraid to take action. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like if you looking at or if you're looking at single family, do it. If you're looking at multifamily, get in there and get started, right? Don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't just sit around reading books. Like, actually get in there and talk to people, and actually, go to those meetups at the local restaurant or whatever. I think that's a really big deal. Getting in there with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, a lot of the thing is like the passive income, the real estate, that's the sexy object. And I think that it's more of like be the operator, get in the weeds,
Right.
be present, get in there and make sure that that you know what's happening on a daily basis. Real estate's a business, and you protect your business by being involved, and that's where your returns come too. They compound. The more involved you are, the more things that you can catch and correct or change, make better, but be the operator. And then you can go into other real estate strategies. You can go into commercial warehousing. You can go into hotels. You can go into, you don't have to stick with one vertical. A lot of people push one vertical, just stick with what you know, but you can go out there and you can be successful in other verticals too.
Totally agree with you. That's a good point.
So very cool. If a listener wants to reach out, get a hold of you, learn more about the bounce method, learn more about yourself, how can they reach out?
Yeah, they can go to thebouncemethod.com, and if you go there, you'll be able to get in touch with me, or at least, buy the book. And then you can also add me on LinkedIn and some other things. I believe will this be sitting somewhere I can drop a link in the LinkedIn for LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we're live right now on LinkedIn, all the channels, and then here in a couple weeks, we'll have it broadcast out on all podcast land, YouTube, all the things. So
Yeah, so I'll add my LinkedIn address for you, and
yeah, we'll tag you in, and then you can repost it. So
okay.
very cool. Definitely appreciate the insights. Appreciate your time. I look forward to following you. Thank you.